Krishnamurti, in dialogue with Dr. Alan W. Anderson. J. Krishnamurti was born in South India and educated in England. For the past 40 years, he has been speaking in the United States, Europe, India, Australia, and other parts of the world. From the outset of his life's work, he repudiated all connections with organized religions and ideologies and said that his only concern was to set men absolutely, unconditionally free. He is the author of many books, among them The Awakening of Intelligence, The Urgency of Change, Freedom from the Known, and The Flight of the Eagle. This is one of a series of dialogues between Krishnamurti and Dr. Alan W. Anderson, who is professor of religious studies at San Diego State University, where he teaches Indian and Chinese scriptures and the oracular tradition. Dr. Anderson, a published poet, received his degree from Columbia University and the Union Theological Seminary. He has been honored with a Distinguished Teaching Award from the California State Universities.
Mr. Krishnamurti, in our last conversation, we came almost up to the point where we were about to begin another on the subject of meditation. And I was hoping that today we could share that together.
Right, sir. So I do not know if you're aware of the many schools of meditation in India, in Japan, in China, the Zen, and the various Christian contemplative orders, those who pray endlessly, keep going day after day, and those who wait to receive the grace of God, or whatever they call it. I think, if I may suggest, we should begin not with what is the right kind of meditation, but what is meditation.
Yes, yes.
Then we can proceed and investigate together, and therefore share together, this question of meditation, which is, with the word meaning ponder, hold together, embrace, consider very, very deeply. All that word is, meaning of all that is involved in that one word, meditation. If we could start with saying that we really do not know what meditation is.
Very well. Mm-hmm.
If we accept the orthodox, traditional Christian or Hindu or Buddhist meditation, and there are, of course, the meditation among the Muslims as the Sufis.
Yes.
And if we accept that, then it's all based on tradition.
Yes.
What some others have experienced, and they lay down the method or the system to practice what they have achieved. And so there are probably thousands of schools of meditation, and they are proliferating in this country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Meditate 3 times a day, think on a word, a slogan, a mantra, and for that you pay $35 or $100, and then you get some Sanskrit word or some other Greek word, and you repeat. Then there are all those people who practice various forms of breathing. and the practice of Zen, and all that is a form of establishing a routine, a practice that will essentially make the mind dull. Because if you practice, you become a mechanical mind. So I have never done any of those things because I have personally, if I may talk a little about myself.
Please do.
I have watched, attended, went into certain groups of various types, just look. And I said, this isn't it. I discarded it instantly. So if we could discard all that, discard the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Christian, and the various importations of meditation by the gurus from India, and the contemplative, all that as a continuance of a tradition which is the carrying over of what others have said and others' experiences, other illuminations, others' enlightenments on. If we could totally discard all that, their method, their systems, their practices, their disciplines, because they're all saying truth or God or whatever they like to call it is something over there. You practice in order to get there. That is a fixed thing according to them. Of course it must be fixed. If I keep practice in order to get there, that must be static.
Yes, of course.
I don't know.
Yes, I quite follow.
Truth isn't static, isn't a dead thing.
No, I quite see that.
So, if we could honestly put away all that and ask what is meditation,
Good.
not how to meditate. In asking that question, what is meditation, we'll begin to find out, we'll begin to meditate ourselves. I don't know if I'm...
Yes, you do. You make yourself very clear. We're back again to the distinction between an activity, the goal of which lies outside the activity, in contrast to the activity,
itself.
the end of which is
Yes.
intrinsic to itself.
Yes.
Yes.
So, could we start with saying, I do not know what meditation is?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm willing to start there.
It's really marvelous if we start from there.
It certainly is.
It brings a great sense of humility.
Also one intuits, even from afar, a freedom.
Yes,
Yes,
that's right.
right.
I don't know. That is a tremendous acknowledgement of a freedom from the established norm, the established traditions, the established methods, the established schools and practices.
Exactly.
I start with something I don't know. That has, for me, that is a great beauty. Then I am free to move.
Exactly.
I'm free to flow or swim with Indian inquiry. So I don't know. And then from that we can start. First of all, is meditation divorced from daily living? the daily conduct, the daily desires of fulfillment, ambition, greed, envy, the daily competitive, imitative, conforming spirit, the daily appetites, sensual, sexual, other forms of intellectual and so on. Is meditation divorced from all that? Or is meditation flows through all that, covers all that, includes all that? Otherwise meditation has no meaning.
Yes, I do. This raises an interesting question I'd like to ask you. Perhaps you'd be good enough to help me clarify this. Now, I've never personally undertaken meditation with respect to its ritual character in some traditions, or its
monastic
and radically methodical approach. I've read rather deeply in the literatures that have emanated from those practices, and I'm thinking, for instance, of what I've understood from my study of what is called the Hesychast tradition,
yes.
where what is called the Jesus prayer is uttered by the monks, particularly on Mount Athos.
Yes.
Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon me, a sinner. This is repeated over and over with, as I understand it, the hope that someday it will become so automatic that, perhaps as a modern-day depth psychologist would put it, the unconscious comes into possession of it, so that what I'm doing, whatever that may be, is itself focused entirely on that prayer. The claim being that when this is achieved, when I no longer have to utter the prayer in that sense, the prayer is uttering itself in me.
The same thing, sir, is expressed in India in a different way, which is mantra. You know that?
Yes.
Repetition of a sentence or a word, and the repeating loudly first, then silently, then it has entered into your being, and the very sound of it is going on.
Yes.
And from that sound you act, you live. But it's all self-imposed in order to arrive at a certain point. I say, for instance, when you said the prayer which you just now repeated is sin. I don't accept sin. I don't know what sin is.
I can just imagine the horror on the faces of those whose ears catch those words.
Which means they are conditioned to a belief that there is a Jesus, that there is a sin, that they must be forgiven. All that is just carrying on a tradition.
This speaks to me very personally. The basis for the decision that I made years ago not to do one of these things was embodied in your statement a little earlier, namely that it is expected that out of this word, or out of these words,
out of breathing, out of
yes, will come somehow this permeation of my total being. And the question that arose for me at the time was, and I'd like you to clarify this, whether you think this question was correct. What arose in my mind was that statement itself, whether mantram or the Jesus prayer, is itself a finite expression.
Absolutely.
Therefore, aren't I doing something strange here?
Yes.
And if I somehow attain to anything that's worth attaining to, it would probably be in spite of that rather than because of it. That perhaps was thinking about thought, but I didn't feel it at the time. I thought that I was making an intuitive response to it, and therefore I simply wouldn't go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, no, please go on.
Quite right, sir. So, you see, all that implies that there is a path to truth. The Christian path, the Hindu path, the Zen, the various gurus and systems, there is a path to that enlightenment or to that truth or to that immeasurable something or other. And it is there, all that you have to do is keep on walking towards it. That means that thing is established, fixed, static, is not moving, is not living.
Mm-hmm. Flashed into my mind the biblical text in which God is described as the lamp unto my feet and the light unto my path. It doesn't say he's the path, but rather he's the lamp
to the path.
Right. It's a lamp to the feet and a light to the path. But it doesn't say that God is the path. That's very interesting.
Very.
But maybe nobody really looks at those words closely.
You see, sir, how you are looking at it already. Mm-hmm. That statement. You see the truth of that statement. Mm-hmm. The feeling of it.
Yes. Yes.
So that's one thing. Does meditation cover the whole field of existence? Or is it something totally apart from life? Life being business, politics, sex, pleasure, ambition, greed, envy, anxiety, death, fear, all that's my life. Life, living. Mm-hmm. Is meditation apart from that, or does it embrace all that? If it doesn't embrace all that, meditation has no meaning.
Something just came to me that I'm sure would be regarded as incredibly heretical. But you know, the words of Jesus himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life, when understood in the context of what has been revealed through these discussions we've had, takes on, in relation to something else he said, an incredibly different meaning from what we've been taught. For instance, when he asks Peter who he is, that is, who am I? Jesus. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He immediately turns to him and says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Nothing to do with flesh and blood, but my Father which is in heaven, which he says elsewhere is one with him, and he's one with the Father. And then he prays in his prayer that the disciples be one with him, as he and his Father are one, that they all may be one. So if you look at that, I'm almost stuttering over myself, because what I'm about to say, I'm aware of, theologically speaking, would looked on as fantastical. When he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, if it's seen in the context of that one as act, then the whole business utterly is transformed, isn't it?
Right.
I'm going to be swallowing hard about that for a long time. Please go on.
So if it is divorced from life, then meditation has no meaning. It's just an escape from life, escape from all our travails and miseries, sorrows, confusion. And therefore it's not worth even touching.
Yes. Right.
If it is not, and it's not for me, then what is meditation? Is it an achievement, an attainment of a goal? Or is it a perfume, a beauty that pervades all my activities? Therefore, it has tremendous significance. Meditation has tremendous significance. Then the next question is it the result of a search? Joining Zen group, then another group, you follow one after the other, one, practice this and practice that, don't practice, take a vow of celibacy, poverty, or don't speak at all, fast, in order to get there. For me, all those are totally unnecessary. Because what is important is the seeing, as we said yesterday, the false. Not I judge the false as true or false, but the very perception reveals the truth and the falseness of it. I must look at it, my eyes must look at it without any prejudices, without any reactions. Then I can say this is false. I won't touch it. That's what I've done. People have come to me and said, oh, you've no idea of all the things. They have said, I said, nothing doing. To me, this is false. Because it doesn't include your life.
Yes.
You haven't changed. You may say, but I'm full of love, I'm full of truth, I'm full of knowledge, I'm full of wisdom. That's all nonsense. Do you behave? Are you free of fear? Are you free of the ambition, greed, envy, and the desire to achieve success in every field? If not, you're just playing a game. You're not serious. So, from that we can proceed.
Yes.
That meditation includes the whole field of existence. Whether in the artistic field or in the business field. Because to me, the division as the artist, business, the politician, the priest, the scholar, and the scientist, how we have fragmented all these as careers. To me, as human beings are fragmented, the expression of this fragmentation is this. Business, scientist, the scholar, the artist.
Yes. I'm thinking of what goes on in the academy with respect to this. We're always saying to each other as academicians, for heaven's sake, let's find an ordering principle by which to bring all this into some kind of integration, so the student really can feel that he's doing something meaningful and not just adding another freight car to the long train of what he doesn't even see.
Quite.
Yes.
And meditation must be, or is, when you deny all this, systems, methods, gurus, authorities, becomes a religious question.
Yes. Profoundly religious question.
Profoundly religious.
Oh, yes.
Now, what place has an artist in the not only social structure, it is expression of the religious, of the religion, of the religious. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is an artist, sir? Is your something apart from our daily living, the beauty of living, the quality of a mind that's really religious? You follow? Is he part of that, or is he a freak outside that? Because he has certain talents. And the expression of that talent becomes extraordinarily important to him and to the people.
In our culture, it often seems that the expression of that talent brings him into conflict with certain conventions.
And also expression that conflict in himself.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a long tradition in Western civilization of the artist as an outsider, don't we?
Yes, something outside.
Mm-hmm.
But he's much more sensitive.
Yes.
Much more alert to the beauty, to nature. But apart from that, he's just an ordinary man.
Yes, of course. Yes.
To me, that's a contradiction. First, be a total human being, and then whatever you create, whatever you do will be beautiful.
Of course.
Whether you paint or whatever you do. Let's divide the artist into something extraordinary, or the businessman something ugly, the scholar just living in a world of the intellect, or the scientist in the world of physics and so on, so on, so on. But first, there must be human being. You understand? Human being in the sense, the total understanding of life. Death, love, beauty, relationship, responsibility, not to kill, all that's implied in living. Therefore, he establishes a relationship with nature. And the expression of that relationship, if it is whole, healthy, is creative.
This is very, very different from what many artists conceive of as their task. Especially in modern times, artists have this notion that they are, in some sense, reflectors of the fragmentation of their times.
Absolutely.
And so they make a statement which holds up the fragmentation as a mirror to us. And what has this got to do with anything else but reinforcing the fragmentation?
Absolutely.
Yes, of course. Yes, I quite understand what you're saying.
You see that meditation covers the whole field of existence. Meditation implies freedom from the method, the system, because I don't know what meditation is. I start from that.
Yes.
Therefore, I start with freedom, not with their burden.
That's marvelous. Start with freedom and not with their burden. This business of holding up fragmentation to us from that perspective is really nothing more than a species of journalism.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yes, of course, yes.
Propaganda.
Of course. Yes.
Therefore, lie.
Mm-hmm.
So I discard all that. So I have no burden. Therefore, mind is free to inquire what is meditation.
Marvelous. Mm-hmm.
To me, I've done this. I'm not just, this is not verbal expressions of, I don't say anything which I haven't lived.
Oh, that's very, very obvious to me, as one sitting here conversing with you. Yes.
I won't,
yes.
That's hypocrisy, and I'm not interested in all that. I'm really interested in seeing what is meditation. So one starts with this freedom, and freedom means the burden, freeing the mind emptying itself of the burdens of others. Their methods, their systems, their acceptance of authority, their beliefs, their hope, because it's part of me, all that. Therefore I discard all that. And now I start by saying I don't know what meditation is. I start, that means the mind is free, has this sense of great humility. Not knowing, I'm not asking. Then somebody will fill it.
Exactly.
Some book, some scholar, some professor, some psychologist comes around and says, you don't know? Here, I know. I'll give it to you. I say, please don't. I know nothing. You know nothing either. Because you are repeating what others have said. So I discard all that. Now I begin to inquire. I'm in a position to inquire. Not to achieve a result, not to arrive at what they call enlightenment, nothing. I don't know if there is enlightenment or not. I start with this feeling of great humility, not knowing, therefore the mind is capable of real inquiry. So inquire. First of all, I look at my life. Because I said at the beginning, meditation implies the covering the whole field of life. My life, our life, is first, I take, the daily conscious living. I've examined, I've looked at it. There is contradiction and so on, so we've been talking about that. And also, there is the question of sleep. I go to sleep. 8, 9, 10 hours. What is sleep? I start not knowing, not what others have said. You follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
I'm inquiring in relation to meditation, which is the real spirit of religion. That is gathering all the energy to move from one dimension to totally different dimension, which doesn't mean divorce from this dimension. I don't know.
No, it's not like those monks going up the hill. No.
I've been up those hills.
Yes.
So, what is sleep? And what is waking? Am I awake? Or I am only awake when there is a crisis, when there is a shock, when there is a challenge, when there is an incident. Death, discard, failure. You follow? Or am I awake all the time? In waking during the daytime. So what is it to be awake? You following, sir?
Yes, I am. Since you're saying that meditation must permeate, obviously to be awake cannot be episodic.
That's it.
Cannot
be episodic, cannot be something stimulated.
Can't be described as peak experiences.
No. Any form of stimulation, external or internal, only implies that you are asleep and you need a stimulant, whether it's coffee, sex, or a tranquilizer, or keep you awake.
Have a shock to go to sleep and have a shock to wake up.
In my inquiry, I'm asking, am I awake? What does it mean to be awake? Not awake to what is happening politically, economically, socially. That's of course obvious. But awake, what does it mean? I am not awake if I have any burden. Right, sir? There is no sense of being awake where there is any kind of fear. If I live with an illusion, there is no. If my actions are neurotic, there is no state of being awake. So I'm inquiring. And I can only inquire by becoming very sensitive to what's happening in me outside me. So is the mind aware during the day completely to what is happening inside, outside of me?
Upon every instant.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Otherwise I'm not awake.
I was just thinking about something that has always given me a great sense of wonder. At home we have some birds, and of all things, a cat too.
Of course.
But they love one another. That is to say, the birds don't run around in the room with the cat, but the cat supervises the birds. When the birds are put to bed in the evening, the cat goes into that room and stays with them maybe an hour or two, watches, just seems to have the feeling that it must look after the birds. And in the daytime, I've often watched the cat sit and look at the birds with an immense intensity. And the ordinary reaction is, well, for heaven's sake, haven't you seen them before? What is this everlasting intensity? But she's looking.
That's right, sir.
And her eyes are always with that jewel-like intensity and clarity, cleaner than flame.
I know.
And it never stops. And when she sleeps, she really, yes. When you asked me what is sleep, there must be a relation between the wonder that we feel for the cat's ability completely to sleep, and when she awakes, she's completely awake. Am I?
That's right, sir.
Yeah.
So, in asking and inquiring what is sleep, I must also ask what is to be awake.
Of course.
Of course. Am I awake, or is the past so alive that is dictating my life in the present? Therefore, I must sleep.
Would you say that again? That's very important.
I don't know how I'll put it differently. Am I awake? Is my mind burdened with the past, and therefore bearing a burden, I'm not awake in the present.
In the present, exactly.
Not awake as I'm talking.
That's right.
Because I am talking from the background of my past, of my experience, of my failures, my hurts, my depressions. Therefore, the past is dominating and putting me to sleep now.
Sleep. It's a narcotic.
Narcotic. Therefore, what am I to do with the past? You follow, sir?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Past is necessary.
Of course, yes. The whole field of knowledge.
Knowledge. Past is necessary. But when the past covers the present, then I am asleep. So, is it possible to know what the past is and not let it overflow into the present? That question and the reality of it brings its own discipline. Therefore I say, yes, I know what it means. I can keep awake totally and widely and yet operate in the field of knowledge. So there is no contradiction. I don't know if I'm conveying it.
Oh, you are.
So the both are moving in harmony. There's no one doesn't lag behind the other. One doesn't contradict the other. There's balance.
What I'm seeing here, if I'm following correctly, is on the one hand we have knowledge and the grasp of its necessity with respect to know-how in practical affairs. On the other hand, we have seeing, understanding. And the act of meditation is the nexus between them, so that there is no interruption of flow in the activity of understanding and knowing.
That is part of meditation.
Of course.
You follow?
Yes.
Now see what's taking place. Then what is sleep? I've understood now what it means to be awake. That means I'm watching. I'm aware. I'm aware without any choice, choiceless awareness, watching, looking, observing, hearing. What is going on, what's going outside, what people tell me, whether they flatter me, whether they insult me, I'm watching. So I'm very aware. Now, what is sleep? I know what is sleep. Resting, shutting your eyes, going to bed at 9 or 10 or later. What is sleep? And in sleep, dreams. What are dreams? I don't know what the others say. I'm not interested in what the others say. You follow? I want to, because my inquiry is to find out whether meditation covers the whole field of life, not just one segment.
My inquiry is from the point where I say, I don't know.
I don't know. That's right. So I perceive. I dream. There are dreams.
Yes.
What are dreams? Why should I dream? So I have to find out why I dream. What are dreams? Dreams are the continuation of my daily sleep. Which is, I haven't understood. See what is taking place, sir. I haven't understood my daily life. I haven't watched my daily life. My daily life is in disorder. So I go to sleep and the disorder continues. And the brain says, I must have order. Otherwise I can't function. So if the mind doesn't put order during the day, brain tries to bring order during the night. I don't feel
through the dream.
Through the dreams, through intimations. When I wake, I say, yes, I have a certain feeling this must be done. So, see what takes place. When the mind is awake during the day, it has order. It establishes order. In the sense we've discussed previously.
Yes, in that sense of order.
Order which comes out of the understanding of disorder. The negation of disorder is order. Not the following of a blueprint.
No.
Or a pattern, or all that's disorder. So during the day, the mind, the brain has established order. So when I sleep, the brain isn't working out how to establish order in itself in order to be secure. Therefore, the brain becomes rested.
I see.
Therefore, the brain becomes quiet, sleeps without dreams. It may have superficial dreams when you eat wrongly, or all that kind of thing. But that I'm not talking about. So when there is sleep means regeneration of the brain. I don't know.
Yes, I do. I wonder if I could ask you a question about dreams here that might introduce a distinction between dreams in terms of their nature. Sometimes we report that we've had a dream which points to a future event. That's entirely different from what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we could say that...
So I think that we can understand that fairly simply. The other day, we were walking high up in the hills in India, and there was a river flowing down below. And two boats were coming in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew where they were going to meet.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
When you go high enough, you see the boats coming together at precise point.
But that's very objective. That has nothing to do with my subjective unfinished business, which is the other thing you were talking
that's
about.
Right.
Yes, I quite see. Right. What an amazing thing it would be to have all your business done and go to sleep, and if order should present you with
therefore,
an understanding,
of course,
then the understanding never stops from waking through sleeping.
Sleep, that's right.
Yes, of course. Marvelous.
So you see, that way the brain is regenerated, keeps young, no conflict. Conflict wears out the brain.
Yes.
So sleep means not only order, rejuvenation, innocence, but also in sleep there are states in which there is absolutely freedom to inquire, to see into something that you have never seen with your eyes, physical eyes.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
So we have described sufficient into that. I see that. So does the mind live that kind of life during the day?
That would be rare.
Otherwise it's not meditation.
Otherwise it's not meditation, of course.
And I don't want to play a hypocritical game, because I'm deceiving nobody. I'm deceiving myself, and I don't want to deceive myself. I don't see the point of deceiving oneself. Because I don't want to be a great man, little man, big man, success, not so. That's all too infantile. So I say, am I living that? If not, what is happening? And it gives me energy to live that way. Because I have no burden of the others. I don't know. Right?
This is very, very remarkable. It reminds me of a story that is told about a swordsman and his three sons. And it was an old swordsman in old Japan. And he wanted to pass on the responsibility for his art to his sons. And he asked the sons each to come into his room, and he would speak to them, and he would decide.
Good.
He was a man of knowledge in terms of the sword, but he also was a man of understanding. And unbeknownst to them, he put a ball on the top of the lintel, and as they passed in, they of course were quite unaware of that. The youngest was called in first, and when the youngest walked in, his father had arranged for this ball to drop, you see, and the ball dropped, and the son, in a flash, cut it in two with his sword, and it fell down. And his father said, "Please wait in the other room." Second son came in. Ball fell on his head, but precisely as it touched his head, he reached up and he took it in his hands, and father said, "Please wait in the other room." Eldest son came in. He opened the door, and as he opened the door, he reached up and he took the ball. And the father called them in, and he read out the youngest son, and he said, "Very brilliant. You've mastered the technique. Don't understand anything." Said to the second one, "Well, you're almost there. Just keep on. And he said to the eldest son, "Well, now you can begin." And it seemed to me, that's just imagine, there was, it's like the word prajna. which means pra, ahead, jna, to know beforehand.
Yes.
In the sense not of some work of prediction that we do based on the study of rats in the lab or something, but yes, understanding is ahead and behind in the total movement of that one act. Oh yes, of course.
So I see this, because I do not separate meditation from daily living. Otherwise it's no meaning. So I see the importance of order during the waking hours, and therefore freeing the mind from the brain from conflict, all that during sleep. So there is total rest to the brain. That's one thing. Then, what is control? Why should I control? They have all said control. All religions have said control. Control, be without desire, don't think about yourself, all that. I say to myself, this is what they say. Can I live without control? You follow, sir?
Oh yes, yes. One has to start that question too at the very beginning.
I'm doing it, that's what we're doing.
Yes, my statement is a reflection, just a mirror to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, is it possible to live without control? Because what is control? And who is the controller? The controller is the controlled. When I say, I must control my thought, the controller is the creation of thought. And thought controls thought. There's no meaning. One fragment controls another fragment. And yet, therefore, remain fragments. So I say, is there a way of living without control? Therefore, no conflict. Therefore, no opposites. Not one desire against another desire. One thought opposed to another thought. One achievement opposed to another achievement. So no control. Is that possible? Because I must find out. Follow, sir? It's not just asking a question, just leaving it alone. I've got energy now. Because I'm not carrying their burden anymore. Nor am I carrying my own burden. Because their burden is my burden. When I discard that, I've discarded this. So I've got energy. And I say, is it possible to live without control? And so that's a tremendous thing. I must find out. Because the people who have control, they have said through control, you arrive at nirvana, heaven. To me that's wrong, totally absurd. So I see, can I live a life of meditation in which there is no control?
When intelligence breaks out, as we looked at before, then with it comes order. And that order...
Intelligence is order.
And intelligence is that order. The seeing is the doing.
Doing, yeah.
Therefore, there is no conflict at all.
Therefore, do I live a life? Not only is it possible, do I live it? I've got desires. I see a car, a woman, a house, a lovely garden, a beautiful clothes, or whatever it is. And instantly all the desires arise. And not to have a conflict, and yet not yield.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the money, I go and buy it. Which is obvious, but that's no answer. If I have no money, I say, well, I'm so sorry, I have no money, and I'll get sometime, someday, I'll come back and buy it. It's the same problem. But the desire is aroused. The seeing, contact, sensation, and desire. Now, that desire is there. And to cut it off is to suppress it.
Mm-hmm.
To control it is to suppress it. To yield to it is another form of fragmenting life into getting and losing. I don't know.
Yes.
So, to allow for the flowering of desire without control. You understand?
Yes, I do.
So the very flowering is the ending of that desire. But if you chop it off, it'll come back again. I don't know.
Yes, it's the difference between a terminus and a consummation.
Yeah. So I let the desire come, flower, and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it, not yield or resist. Just let it flower.
Mm-hmm.
And be fully aware of what is happening. Then there is no control.
And no disorder.
No, of course. Moment you control, there is a disorder. Because you're suppressing or all the rest of it. So that is disorder. But when you allow this thing to flower and watch it in the sense, be totally aware of it. The petals, the subtle forms of desire, to possess, not to possess a pleasure, not to possess a pleasure. You follow the whole of that movement of desire.
Exactly.
And that you have to have very sensitive watchfulness, very sensitive, choiceless watching.
This image that you have referred to metaphorically with the plant itself,
Yeah.
Could we pursue that in our next conversation through a continuation of concern to look further into
we
meditation?
haven't finished meditation.
We haven't
yet.
no.
There's
Good.
lots more involved.
Good. Mr. Krishnamurti, we were discussing in our conversation last time meditation, and just as we concluded, you brought up the very beautiful analogy from the flowering of a plant, and it struck me that the order that is intrinsic to the movement of the plant as it flowers is a revelatory image of order that you have been discussing. And we were talking also about the relation of meditation to understanding on the one hand and knowledge on the other, a distinction that's very, very rarely made.
Yes.
Though in ordinary language we make the distinction, perhaps unwittingly. It's there.
It's there.
We have the two words.
Right.
But then to go into what the distinction is was something you were beginning to do, and perhaps we can
go on.
Yes.
So we were talking, if I remember rightly, about control.
Yes.
And we said the controller is the controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into that sufficiently. And when there is control, there is direction. Direction implies will. Control implies will, and in the desire to control, there is established a goal and a direction. Which means to carry out the decision made by will, and the carrying out is the duration of time.
Yes.
And therefore direction means time, control, will, and an end. All that's implied in the word control. Isn't it? So what place has will in meditation and therefore in life?
Yes, yes, yes.
Or it has no place at all. That means there is no place for decision at all. Only seeing, doing. And that doesn't demand will, nor direction. When you follow, you
Yes,
see,
I do. Yes, I do.
the beauty of this, how it works out. When the mind sees the futility of control, because it has understood the controller is the controlled, one fragment trying to dominate other fragments, and that the dominant fragment is a part of other fragments, and therefore it is like going round in circles, never vicious circle, never getting out of it. So can there be a living without control? Just listen to it. Without will and without direction. There must be direction in the field of knowledge. Agreed. Otherwise, I couldn't get home, the place I live. I would lose the capacity to drive a car, ride a cycle, speak a language, do all the technological things necessary in life. Their direction, calculation, decision in that field is necessary. Choice is necessary between this and that. Here, where there is choice, there is confusion, because there is no perception. Where there is perception, there is no choice. Choice exists because the mind is confused between this and that. So, can a life be led without control, without will, without direction? That means time. And that's meditation. Not just a question, an interesting, perhaps a stimulating question, but when a question, however stimulating, has no meaning by itself. It has a meaning in living.
I was thinking about ordinary language usage again, as you were speaking. It's interesting, isn't it, that when we regard that somebody has performed an action that we call willful,
Of course.
that this is an action that has been undertaken without understanding.
Of course.
So in the very distinction between will as a word and willful as an adjective, we have a hint of this distinction.
Yes.
But I'd like to ask you, if I could, about the relationship of will for the moment. Even though we're talking about meditation, we did regard that knowledge in its own right does have a proper career.
Of course.
And we say that decision is referred to that, choice is referred to that, and therefore will is operative there.
And a direction, everything.
And a direction, and so on. So we are making a distinction here between will and its role in relation to the whole field of what we call loosely know-how.
Know-how, knowledge.
Yes. And the confusion that occurs when that activity, so necessary in its own right, is brought over
That's right.
into this.
That's right.
And then we can't do either of them, really.
Then that's just what
Can we?
takes place. Therefore we become inefficient,
Yes.
personal.
But you see, we don't think that. What we think is that we can be terribly efficient in knowledge and be what is called unspiritual.
Yes.
And be a success here and not be a success here. Whereas, if I understand you correctly, you don't fail in one or the other. You just fail, period. It's a total failure if this confusion is made. You simply can't operate even well here, no matter what it might look like in the short run.
As long as you are not completely in order inside yourself.
Right, exactly. So the very division that we make between inner and outer is itself a symptom of this
of
terrible...
thought which has divided the outer and the inner.
Yes, yes. I hope you'll bear with me in going through that.
Yes, that's
because
absolutely, you're quite right.
I know in religious thought, my academic discipline, in religious thought, this confusion, well, the weight of it.
I know.
You feel
a prayer.
and as soon as you begin to make a comment of any kind about it, that is simply raising the question. The extreme rigidity and nervousness that occurs
Quite.
is dramatic. Yes, yes.
You see, sir, so I'm asking, meditation covers the whole field of living, not one segment of it. Therefore, living a life without control, without the action of will, decision, direction, achievement. Is that possible? If it is not possible, it's not meditation. Therefore, life becomes superficial, meaningless, and to escape from that meaningless life, we chase all the gurus, the religious entertainments, circuses. You follow all the practice of it has no meaning. Yeah?
You know, well, of course you do. It's a rhetorical question.
You know.
In the classical tradition, we have a definition of will. We say that it's desire made reasonable. Desire made reasonable. Now, of course, we've long since lost the idea of what the ancients meant against their contemplative background by the word reason. We think it means calculation. But of course, that's not what the classical tradition means when it says reasonable. It points rather to that order which isn't defined. And it occurs to me that if we understood that statement correctly, we'd be saying will is the focus of desire without my focusing self-consciously.
Yes, that's right. And watching desire to flower,
yes,
and therefore watching the will in operation and let it flower, and as it flowers, as you are watching it dies, it withers away.
yes.
After all, it's like a flower. You allow it to bloom, and it withers.
It comes to be and passes away in its own
Therefore,
time.
if you are choicelessly aware of this movement of desire, control, will, focusing that will in action, and so on, so on, so on. Let it, watch it. And as you watch it, you see how it loses its vitality. So there is no control. So from that arises the next question, which is, direction means space.
Right? Yes, of course.
It's very interesting.
It is.
what is space? Space which thought has created is one thing. Space that exists in heaven, in our, what is it? In the universe, space. There must be space for a mountain to exist. There must be space for a tree to grow. There must be space for a flower to bloom.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is space? And have we space? Or are we all so limited physically to living in a little apartment, little houses, no space at all outwardly, and therefore, having no space, we become more and more violent?
Yes.
I don't know if you have watched of an evening when all the swallows are lined up on a bough.
Oh, yes.
And how exact spaces they have in between. You follow, sir? Have you? It's
Yes,
marvelous,
it's marvelous, yes.
to see this space. And space is necessary. And we have no space physically. More and more population and all the rest of it. And therefore more and more violence. More and more living together in a small flat. 1,000 people, crowded. Breathing the same air, thinking the same thing, seeing the same television, reading the same book, going to the same church, believing the same thing. You follow?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The same sorrow, the same anxiety, the same fears. My country, all that. So, mind and so the brain has very little space. And space is necessary. Otherwise, I stifle. So, can the mind have space? And there will be no space if there is a direction.
Clearly, yes.
You see, sir?
Of course. Yes, I do.
Huh?
Yes.
There is no space if direction means time. So can the, and when the mind is occupied with family, with business, with God, with drink, with sex, with experience, occupied, filled, there's no space.
That's right. Exactly.
So, when knowledge occupies the whole field of thought, of the mind as thought, there is no space. And thought creates space around itself. As the me enclosed and you enclosed. We and they. So, the self, the me, which is the very essence of thought, has its own little space. And to move out of that space is terror, is fear, is anxiety. Because I'm only used to that little space.
Yes, exactly. That brings us back to the earlier conversation we had when we touched the point of terror.
Yes, that's right.
Amazing.
The not being, and the being is in the little space which thought has created. So thought can never give space.
Of course not.
So, meditation is the freedom, is the freeing of the mind, of its content as consciousness, which creates its own little space. You follow that?
Yes, I do.
Huh? So, from that says, is that possible? Because I'm occupied with my wife, my children, my responsibilities. I care for the tree, I care for the cat, I care for this and that. And I'm occupied.
This throws a marvelous light on that saying of Jesus, which people have pondered and wondered about and thought is very strange. Foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. That he doesn't, man as such, who grasps himself, understands, is not inventing a space for himself. It fits perfectly. It fits perfectly. That's marvelous.
I don't know what...
Yeah. No, I understand, but I was thinking in the context of the whole discourse. It just flashed over me. And our conversations have been such a revelation to me with respect to the literatures that I've soaked myself in for so many years. And it's a demonstration to me of what you've said, for instance, insofar as I ask these questions of myself personally, precisely as they become answered. So all these things out here become answered, and what could be more empirically demonstrable to an individual that I am the world and the world is me than that?
That's right.
So all I'm doing is just giving a report of the journey without direction.
So look, as the world is getting more and more overpopulated, cities are going more and more, spreading, suburbs and so on. Man is getting less and less space. Mm-hmm. Therefore, driving out animals, killing before.
Oh dear, yes.
Killing the American Indians, killing the Indians in Brazil and so on. They are doing this, actually going on.
Oh, yes.
And having no space out there, outwardly, except on occasions I go often to the country and see oh my God, I wish I could live here. But I can't because I've got so on. So, can there be space inwardly? When there is space inwardly, there is space outwardly.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the outward space is not going to give the inner space. The inner space of mind that is free from occupation, though it is occupied at the moment, with what it has to do, it is occupied. But free, the moment it finishes, it's over. I don't carry the office to my home.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. So space in the mind means the emptying of consciousness of all its content, and therefore the consciousness which thought as the me has created ends, and therefore there is space.
Mm-hmm.
And that space isn't yours or mine, it's space.
Yes, I was thinking of the creation story in Genesis. The appearance of space occurs when the waters are separated from the waters,
Yes.
and we have the vault now over which the birds fly. And this space is called heaven. Isn't it? And in the context
It is heaven.
It is heaven.
That's right.
Yes, of course. But then we read that, you see, and we don't...
Fortunately, I don't read any of those things. I don't...
Goodness.
So space, direction, time, will, choice, control. You understand, sir? Now, all that has importance in my living, in the daily living of my life, of every human being. If he doesn't know what the meaning of meditation, he merely lives in that field of knowledge. And therefore that becomes a prison. And therefore that being a prison, he says, I must escape through entertainment, through gods, through this and through that, through amusement. You know, that's what is actually taking place.
The word vacation.
Vacation, that's right.
Says it all.
Yes, that's
doesn't
right.
it?
Yeah, absolutely.
To vacate is to exit into space.
Space.
Yeah. But then we go from one hole to another.
Another hole.
Yeah.
Now, if that is clearly established, perceived in myself, I see the thing operating in my daily life, then what takes place? Space means silence. If there is silence, if there is no silence, it's direction. It's the operation of will. I must do, I must not do, I must practice this, I must get this. You follow? This should be, should not be, what has been, what should not be, I regret. All that operates. Therefore, space means silence inwardly.
That's very deep. Very, very deep. It, archetypally, we associate manifestation as over against latency with sound.
Yes, sound.
And what you said puts the whole thing into an astonishing perspective.
Silence isn't the space between two noises. Silence isn't the cessation of noise. Silence isn't something that thought has created. It comes naturally, inevitably, as you open, as you observe, as you examine, as you investigate. So then the question arises, silence, without a movement. Movement of direction, movement of thought, movement of time, or silence. Now, that silence, can that operate in my daily life? I live in the field of noise as knowledge. That I have to do. And is there a living with silence and at the same time the other? The two moving together, two rivers flowing in balance, not division. You follow? In harmony, there is no division. Is that possible? Because otherwise, if that's not possible, to be deeply honest, I can only live there, in the field of knowledge. I don't know if
Oh yes, yes.
So, for me it is possible. Therefore, I'm not saying it out of vanity, or I say this in great humility. I say that is possible. It is so. Then what takes place? Then what is creation? Is creation something to be expressed in paint, in poem, in statue, in writing, in being about a baby? Is that creation? Does creation need, or must it be expressed? To us it must be expressed, to most people. Otherwise, one feels frustrated, anxious. I am not living. You follow? All that. So what is creation? One can only answer that if one has really gone through all this. You understand, sir? Otherwise, creation becomes rather a cheap thing.
Yes, it becomes, in terms of the word expressed, simply something pressed out.
Pressed out, of course.
That's all.
At all.
Yes.
Just like the literary people, who are, some of them are everlastingly in battle in themselves with tension and all that, and out of that they write a book become famous.
Yes, the psychological theory that works about are based on neurosis,
That's it.
which means I'm driven.
Yeah. So what is creation? Is it something, a flowering in which the flower does not know that it is flowering? I don't.
Exactly, exactly.
Have I made it clear?
Yes, you've made it very, very clear. All through our conversations, the one word that has, for me, been like the clean blade of a two-edged sword has been this word act.
Yes, sir.
But not act over against inaction.
No.
Not action as over against the philosophical term of its opposite, passion, which is a different use from the one that you were using in our conversations. But sheerly act.
Act.
Sheerly act.
So, sir, see what takes place. Huh? Creation in my living. You follow, sir? Not expressing, creating a beautiful chair, this, that may come, that will come. But in living. And from that arises another question, which is really much more important. Thought is measure. And as long as we cultivate thought, and all our actions based on thought as it is now, the search for the immeasurable has no meaning. I can give a meaning to it. Say there is the immeasurable. There is the unnameable. There is the eternal. Don't let's talk about it. It is there. It has no meaning. That's just a supposition, a speculation, or the assertion of few who think they know. One has discarded all that. Therefore now, when the mind is utterly silent, what is the immeasurable? You follow, sir? What is the everlasting? What is the eternal? Not in terms of God and all these things man has invented. Actually to be that. I don't know, sir. Now, silence in that deep sense of that word opens the door. Because you got there all your energy. Not a thing is wasted. There is no dissipation of energy at all. Therefore, in that silence there is summation of energy.
Precisely.
Not stimulated energy, not self-projected energy, and so on. So that's all too childish. Because there is no conflict, no control, no reaching out or not reaching, searching, asking, questioning, demanding, waiting, praying, none of that. Therefore there is tremendous, all that energy which has been wasted is now gathered in that silence. That silence has become sacred. Because obviously,
of course it has.
It has not the sacred thing which thought has invented.
No, not the sacred over against the profane.
And all that kind of stuff.
No.
So, It is only such a sacred mind can see this, the most supreme sacred, the essence of all that is sacred, which is beauty. You follow?
I do.
So there it is. God isn't something that man has invented or created it out of his image and longing and failure. But when the mind itself becomes sacred, then it opens the door to something that is immeasurably sacred. That is religion. And that affects the daily living. The way I talk, the way I treat people, the conduct, behavior, all that. That is the religious life. If that doesn't exist, then every other mischief will exist. However clever, however intelligent, however all that.
And meditation does not occur in the context of all this disorder.
No.
Absolutely not. But in its ongoingness, the way you have mentioned it, one is precisely in that where what your word religious is pointing to.
That's the most profound religious way of living. See, sir, what takes place, another thing. See, as this thing is happening, because your energy is being gathered. Energy is being gathered, not your. Energy is being gathered. You have other kinds of powers. Extrasensory power. You can do miracles. It has happened all this to me. Exercise. And that kind of stuff. A healing. But they become totally irrelevant. Not that you don't love people. On the contrary, religion is the essence of it. But they're all secondary issues. And people get caught in the secondary issues. I mean, look what's happening. A man who really can heal, he becomes... people worship him. Little healing.
Reminds me of a story you told me once. I think it was a year ago, when it was about the old man sitting on the banks of the river, and the young man came to him after the older man had sent him away to undertake whatever he needed to learn and all this, and he came back with a marvelous announcement that he could now walk on water. And then you said that the older man looked at him and said, what's all that about? So you can walk on water. And you've taken all these years to learn how to walk on water. Didn't you see the boat over there on the path?
That's right. Of course.
There's...
You see, sir, that's very important. When there is this... Religion is, as we said, is the gathering of all energy, which is attention. In that attention, many things happen. Some of them have this gift of healing, miracles. I've had it, and I know of which I'm speaking about. And religious man never touches it, you follow? He may say occasionally do this or that, but it isn't. It is a thing to be put away. Like a gift, like a talent, it's to be put away because it's a danger.
Exactly.
But the more you are talented, the more me. I am important. I have this talent. Worship me. With that talent I get money, position, power. So this too is a most dangerous thing. So a mind that's religious is aware of all this. and lives a life
in this space, in this marvelous space. Something occurred to me about our discussion earlier concerning energy, and your remark that energy, when it patterns itself, I've forgotten what you used to designate what the patterned energy was, but I suspect it's what we often call matter.
Matter, yes, quite.
Wouldn't that be correct?
Yeah.
Right. In terms of this pointing to act that you have mentioned, it throws a very, very different light on the character of patterned energy and draws our gaze away from the pattern and reminds us
Quite.
that the substance, or rather the substantive element, I don't want to use the word substance there for philosophical reasons, the substantive element that we point to is not the pattern but the energy.
Energy, quite. See, sir, that is love, isn't it, sir? Huh? When there is this sense of religious summation of energy, that is love, that's compassion, and care that operates in daily life.
In love, the pattern never resists change.
Yes. So you
Yes.
see, sir, that love, you can do what you like. It will be still love. But there the love becomes sensation. You follow?
Yes,
You
yes,
feel
on the
upon
whole
it,
track
yeah.
of knowledge. Yes.
And therefore there is no love there.
Yes, that image of the Lionel train, the toy that goes round and round and round, isn't that extraordinary?
You see, sir, that means, can the mind, I'm using the word mind, in the sense mind, the brain, the body, the whole thing, can the mind be really silent? Not induced silence, not silence put together, not silence that thought imagines his silence, not the silence of a church or the temple. They have their own silence. When you enter a temple or a old cathedrals, they have an extraordinary sense of silence. Thousands of people chanted, talked, prayed, all that, but it is above all that.
Mm-hmm.
It is not that either. So this silence isn't contrived, and therefore it is real. It isn't I have brought about through practice a silence.
No, it's not what you mentioned earlier, that space between two noises,
That's right.
because that would become an interval.
Yeah, that's right.
And as an interval, it simply becomes successive.
Successive, that's right.
This is extraordinary in terms of the continuing return to question. It seems to me that it's only in the attitude of the question that there's any possibility for even intuiting from afar the possibility of the silence, since already the answer is a noise.
So, sir, there's something very interesting. Does this come about through questioning?
No, I didn't mean to suggest that questioning generates it. I meant that simply to take a step back from the enthrallment and enchantment with answers is in itself a necessary step. And that in itself has its own terror.
Of course, of course. But I'm asking, is silence, is this sense of immeasurable, does that come about by my questioning?
No.
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 Perception sees the false and discards the false. There is no question. It sees and finished. But if I keep on questioning, I keep on doubting. Doubt has its place, but it must be kept on a leash.
Now, let me ask you a question here, if I may. The act of perceiving is, as you've said, the doing.
Doing,
There's
absolutely.
absolutely no interval between one
So I see danger to the act.
and I act. Exactly. Now, in this perceiving, the act is totally free,
Yes, sir. No
and then every energy pattern is free
free.
to
Yes.
become change.
Yes, quite.
Yes, exactly. No more hoarding to itself
No regret.
all that it's worked for all its life.
Quite. Oh, no.
Yeah, and amazingly, though, it seems to me there's, if I've understood you correctly, there's a corollary to this. Not only is the pattern free to be changed, but the energy is free to pattern itself.
Or not a pattern.
Or not to pattern. Yes,
There it is. In the knowledge has to pattern.
of course.
But here it can't pattern. Pattern of for what? If it patterns, becomes thought again. And therefore thought is divisive, thought is superficial. I don't know if I told you the other day, somebody was telling me, Professor Boehmler, in fact, he was saying that in Eskimo language, thought means the outside. Very interesting. The outside. When you say go outside, the word is thought. So thought has created the outer and the inner. If thought is not, then there is neither the outer nor the inner. That is space. It isn't I've got inner space.
No. We've been talking about meditation in relation to religion, and I simply feel I must ask you to speak about the interrelationship of prayer to meditation, with meditation, because conventionally we always refer to prayer and meditation.
No, I don't. To me, prayer is no place in meditation. To whom am I praying? Whom am I supplicating, begging, asking?
A prayer as petition has no place
Petition,
in this.
that.
Is there any is there any use of the word prayer that would be consonant with what we've been talking about?
If there is no petition, you understand, deeply, inwardly, there is no petition.
No grabbing, grasping.
Because the grabber is the grabbed.
Exactly.
If there is no petition, what takes place? I petition only when I don't understand, when I'm in conflict, when I'm in sorrow, you follow? When I'm saying, oh God, I've lost everything. I'm finished. I can't arrive. I can't achieve.
When there's no petition, I can look. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, a woman comes to me once, some time ago, she said, I have prayed, almost for years, and I prayed for my refrigerator, and I've got it. Yes, sir. I pray for peace, and I live a life of violence all the time. I say, I pray for my country. And I've divided the country, opposed to another country. And I pray for my country. It becomes so child.
In conventional prayers, there is usually both petition and praise. Both
Of course,
are there.
Praising and receiving.
And of course,
You must know in Sanskrit, it always begins, some parts of it, praising, and then begging.
And yeah.
There's a marvelous chant which is asking protection of the gods. Protection. And this is, may you protect my steps.
Yes.
Praising God, then saying, please protect my steps. So, if there is no petition, because the petitioner is the petitioned, the beggar is the begged, is the receiver, then what takes place in the mind? No asking.
Immense quietude. Immense quietude. The proper sense of whatever the word tranquility points
That's
to.
right. That is real peace. Not the phony peace they're all talking about, politicians and the religious people. That's real. No asking a thing.
There's a very beautiful biblical phrase, the peace that passeth understanding.
I've heard that phrase when I was a small boy.
I've always asked myself since a child how it's the case that there's so much talk about such a thing and there's so little evidence of it.
So I think, books have become tremendously important. What they have written, what they have said. And so the human mind has become second-hand. Or the mind that has acquired so much knowledge about what other people have experienced about reality. How can such a mind experience or find or come upon that thing which is original?
Not that route.
No, sir. And can the mind empty itself of its content? If it cannot, it cannot. Acquire, then reject, then receive. You follow?
Yes.
Why should I go through all those stages? Why can't I say, well, I look. There is no book in the world that's going to teach me. There is no teacher that's going to teach me, because the teacher is the taught. The disciple is the teacher. I don't know.
No, that is in itself as a statement. If one will, as we said in an earlier conversation, at the inception of looking, if he will hold that very statement, I am the world and the world is me, is an occasion for healing.
Yes, sir.
But that very statement, I am the world and the world is me, sounds, as you've said so often, so absurd that at that point one starts to bolt again, panic again. Meditation, when undertaken As it must be continuously,
And
because
that
we're
means-
talking about that
yes, sir.
movement.
That means one has to be very, very serious. It isn't a thing that you play with.
No. It's not what's called these days a fun thing.
And
In
No,
no
sir.
sense. No. The discussion that you have undertaken concerning it is so total. In meditation isn't a thing that you do, among other things.
oh, for Christ.
No.
That is, meditation means attention, care. That's part of it. Care for my children, for my neighbor, for my country, for the earth, for the trees, for the animals. Don't kill animals. You follow, don't kill them to eat. It's so unnecessary. It's part of your, the tradition says, you must eat meat. Oh, therefore, sir, all this comes to a sense of deep inward seriousness, and that seriousness itself brings about attention, care, and responsibility in all that we discussed. It isn't that one has gone through all this. One sees it. And the very perception is action, which is wisdom. Because wisdom is the ending of suffering. It isn't carelessness, it's the ending of it. And the ending of it means the observation, the seeing of suffering, not to go beyond it, refuse it, rationalize it or run away from it, just to see it, live it, let it flower. And as you're choicelessly aware of this flowering, it comes naturally to wither away. I don't have to do something about it.
Marvelous, marvelous how energy can be free to pattern itself or not pattern itself. The pattern is free to be energized, or the whole thing is simply all round.
Yes, it covers the whole of man's endeavor, his thoughts, his anxiety, everything it covers.
So in our conversations all through, we have reached a point of consummation here,
Yes.
where
The whole
it is round. I wonder if Shakespeare had some intimation of this when he said ripeness is all. He must have been thinking of that not simply as setting a term
And
to the
also,
career
sir,
of a fruit.
Time comes to an end. Time stops. In silence, time stops.
In silence, time stops.
Good.
Immensely beautiful. I must express to you my gratitude from the
Yes,
bottom of my
absolutely.
heart. I hope you will let me, because throughout the whole career of our discussions, I have been undergoing a transformation.
Right. Because you are willing enough to listen, good enough to listen. Most people are not, they won't listen. You took the time, the trouble, the care to listen.
I've already seen, in my relation to my classes, in the activity my students and I share, the beginning of a flower.
Flowering, quite right.
The beginning of a flowering.
Right.
Thank you so much again.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lamp to the feet and a light to the path. But it doesn't say that God is the path. That's very interesting.
Very.
But maybe nobody really looks at those words closely.
You see, sir, how you are looking at it already. Mm-hmm. That statement, you see the truth of that statement, mm-hmm. the feeling of it.
Yes, yes.
So, that's one thing. Does meditation cover the whole field of existence? Or is it something totally apart from life? Life being business, politics, sex, pleasure, ambition, greed, envy, anxiety, death, fear, all that is my life. Life, living. Mm-hmm. Is meditation apart from that, or does it embrace all that? If it doesn't embrace all that, meditation has no meaning.
Something just came to me that I'm sure would be regarded as incredibly heretical. But you know, the words of Jesus himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life, when understood in the context of what has been revealed through these discussions we've had, takes on, in relation to something else he said, an incredibly different meaning from what we've been taught. For instance, when he asks Peter who he is, that is, who am I? Jesus. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He immediately turns to him and says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Nothing to do with flesh and blood, but my Father which is in heaven, which he says elsewhere is one with him, and he's one with the Father. And then he prays in his prayer that the disciples be one with him, as he and his Father are one, that they all may be one. So if you look at that, I'm almost stuttering over myself, because what I'm about to say, I'm aware of, theologically speaking, would looked on as fantastical. When he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, if it's seen in the context of that one as act, then the whole business utterly is transformed, isn't it?
Right, right.
I'm going to be swallowing hard about that.
That statement, you see the truth of that statement, mm-hmm. the feeling of it.
Yes, yes.
So, that's one thing. Does meditation cover the whole field of existence? Or is it something totally apart from life? Life being business, politics, sex, pleasure, ambition, greed, envy, anxiety, death, fear, all that is my life. Life, living. Mm-hmm. Is meditation apart from that, or does it embrace all that? If it doesn't embrace all that, meditation has no meaning.
Something just came to me that I'm sure would be regarded as incredibly heretical. But you know, the words of Jesus himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life, when understood in the context of what has been revealed through these discussions we've had, takes on, in relation to something else he said, an incredibly different meaning from what we've been taught. For instance, when he asks Peter who he is, that is, who am I? Jesus. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He immediately turns to him and says, Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Nothing to do with flesh and blood. But my Father, which is in heaven, which he says elsewhere, is one with him, and he's one with the Father. And then he prays in his prayer that the disciples be one with him, as he and his Father are one, that they all may be one. So if you look at that, I'm almost stuttering over myself, because what I'm about to say, I'm aware of, theologically speaking, would looked on as fantastical. When he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, if it's seen in the context of that one as act, then the whole business utterly is transformed, isn't it?
Right.
I'm going to be swallowing hard about that for a long time. Please go on.
So if it is divorced from life, then meditation has no meaning. It's just an escape from life, escape from all our travails and miseries, sorrows, confusion. And therefore it's perfect. If I keep practice in order to get there, that must be static.
Yes, of course.
I don't know.
Yes, I quite follow.
Truth isn't static, isn't a dead thing.
No, I quite see that.
So, if we could honestly put away all that and ask what is meditation,
Good.
not how to meditate. In asking that question, what is meditation, we'll begin to find out, we'll begin to meditate ourselves. I don't know if I'm...
Yes, you do. You make yourself very clear. We're back again to the distinction between an activity, the goal of which lies outside the activity, in contrast to the activity,
itself.
the end of which is intrinsic to itself.
Yes.
Yes.
So, could we start with saying, I do not know what meditation is?
Yes. I'm willing to start there.
It's really marvelous if we start from that.
It certainly is.
It brings a great sense of humility.
Also one intuits, even from afar, a freedom.
Yes, that's right. I don't know. That is a tremendous acknowledgement of a freedom from the established norm, the established traditions, the established methods, the established schools and practices.
Exactly.
I start with something I don't know. That has, for me, that is a great beauty. Then I am free to move.
Exactly.
I'm free to flow or swim with in the inquiry. So I don't know. And then from that we can start. First of all, is meditation divorced from daily living? The daily conduct, the daily desires of fulfillment, ambition, greed, envy, the daily competitive, imitative, conforming spirit, the daily what they have written, what they have said. And so the human mind has become second hand. Or the mind that has acquired so much knowledge about what other people have experienced about reality. How can such a mind experience or find or come upon that thing which is original?
Not that route.
No. And can the mind empty itself of its content? If it cannot, it cannot. Acquire, then reject, then receive. You follow?
Yes.
Why should I go through all those stages? Why can't I say, well, I'll look. There is no book in the world that's going to teach me. There is no teacher that's going to teach me, because the teacher is the taught. The disciple is the teacher. I don't know.
No, that is in itself as a statement. If one will, as we said in an earlier conversation, at the inception of looking, if he will hold that very statement, I am the world and the world is me, is an occasion for healing.
Yes, sir.
But that very statement, I am the world and the world is me, sounds, as you've said so often, so absurd that at that point one starts to bolt again, panic again. Meditation, when undertaken as it must be continuously,
And
because
that
we're
means-
talking about that
yes, sir.
movement.
That means one has to be very, very serious. It isn't a thing that you play with.
No. It's not what's called these days a fun thing.
And
In no
sir.
sense. No. The discussion that you have undertaken concerning it is so total. In meditation isn't a thing that you do, among other things.
oh, for Christ.
No.
That is, meditation means attention, care. That's part of it. Care for my children, for my neighbor, for my country. And I've divided the country, opposed to another country. And I pray for my country. It becomes so child.
In conventional prayers, there is usually both petition and praise. Both
Of
are
course,
there.
praising and receiving.
Praise. And of course,
You must know in Sanskrit, it always begins some parts of it praising, and then begging.
and yeah.
There's a marvelous chant which is asking protection of the gods. Protection. And he says, may you protect my steps.
Yes.
Praising God, then saying, please protect my steps. So, if there is no petition, because the petitioner is the petitioned, the beggar is the begged, is the receiver, then what takes place in the mind? No asking.
Immense quietude. Immense quietude. The proper sense of whatever the word tranquility points
That's
to.
right. That is real peace. Not the phony peace they're all talking about, politicians and the religious people. That's real. No asking a thing.
There's a very beautiful biblical phrase, the peace that passeth understanding.
I've heard that phrase when I was a small boy.
I've always asked myself since a child how it's the case that there's so much talk about such a thing and there's so little evidence of it.
So I think, books have become tremendously important. What they have written, what they have said. And so the human mind has become second-hand. Or the mind that has acquired so much knowledge about what other people have experienced about reality. How can such a mind experience or find or come upon that thing which is original?
Not that route.
The beauty of living, the quality of a mind that's really religious. You follow? Is he part of that, or is he a freak outside that? Because he has certain talents. And the expression of that talent becomes extraordinarily important to him and to the people.
In our culture, it often seems that the expression of that talent brings him into conflict with certain conventions.
And also expression that conflict in himself.
Of course. Yes, we have a long tradition in Western civilization of the artist as an outsider, don't we?
Yes, something outside. But he's much more sensitive.
Yes.
Much more alert to the beauty, to nature. But apart from that, he's just an ordinary man.
Yes, of course. Yes.
To me, that's a contradiction. First, be a total human being, and then whatever you create, whatever you do will be beautiful.
Of course.
Whether you paint or whatever you do. Let's divide the artist into something extraordinary, or the businessman something ugly, the scholar just living in a world of the intellect, or the scientist in the world of physics and so on, so on, so on. But first, there must be human being. You follow, sir? Human being in the sense, the total understanding of life. Death, love, beauty, relationship, responsibility. Not to kill, all that's implied in living. Therefore, he establishes a relationship with nature. And the expression of that relationship, if it is whole, healthy, is creative.
This is very, very different from what many artists conceive of as their task. Especially in modern times, artists have this notion that they are, in some sense, reflectors of the fragmentation of their times.
Absolutely.
And so they make a statement which holds up the fragmentation as a mirror to us. And what has this got to do with anything else but reinforcing the fragmentation?
In paint, in poem, in statue, in writing, in being about a baby, is that creation? Does creation need, or must it be expressed? To us it must be expressed, to most people. Otherwise, one feels frustrated, anxious, I am not living. You follow? All that. So what is creation? One can only answer that if one has really gone through all this. You understand, sir? Otherwise, creation becomes rather a cheap thing.
Yes, it becomes, in terms of the word expressed, simply something pressed out.
Pressed out, of course.
That's all.
At all.
Yes.
Just like the writer, literary people, who are, some of them are everlastingly in battle in themselves with tension and all that, and out of that they write a book, become famous.
Yes, the psychological theory that works about are based on neurosis.
Yeah, that's it.
Which means I'm driven.
Yeah. So what is creation? Is it something, a flowering in which the flower does not know that it is flowering? I don't.
Exactly. Exactly.
Have I made it clear?
Yes, you've made it very, very clear. All through our conversations, the one word that has, for me, been like the clean blade of a two-edged sword has been this word act.
Yes, sir.
But not act over against inaction.
No.
Not action as over against the philosophical term of its opposite, passion, which is a different use from the one that you were using in our conversations. But sheerly act.
Act.
Sheerly act.
So, sir, see what takes place. Huh? Creation in my living. You follow, sir? Not expressing, creating a beautiful chair, this, that may come, that will come. But in living.
We've been talking about meditation in relation to religion, and I simply feel I must ask you to speak about the interrelationship of prayer to meditation, with meditation, because conventionally we always refer to prayer and meditation.
No, I don't. To me, prayer is no place in meditation. To whom am I praying? Whom am I supplicating, begging, asking?
A prayer as petition has no place in this. Is there any is there any use of the word prayer that would be consonant with what we've been talking about?
If there is no petition, you understand, deeply, inwardly, there is no petition.
No grabbing, grasping.
No, because the grabber is the grabbed.
Exactly.
If there is no petition, what takes place? I petition only when I don't understand, when I'm in conflict, when I'm in sorrow, you follow? When I'm saying, oh God, I've lost everything. I'm finished. I can't arrive. I can't achieve.
When there's no petition, I can look. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, a woman comes to me once, some time ago. She said, I have prayed, almost for years. And I prayed for my refrigerator, and I've got it. Yes, sir. I pray for peace, and I live a life of violence all the time. I say, I pray for my country. And I've divided the country, opposed to another country. And I pray for my country. It becomes so child.
In conventional prayers, there is usually both petition and praise. Both are there.
Praising and receiving.
And of course,
you must know in Sanskrit, it always begins, some parts of it, praising, and then begging.
And yeah.
There's a marvelous chant, which is asking protection of the gods.
Profoundly religious question.
Profoundly religious.
Oh, yes.
Now, what place has an artist in the not only social structure, in his expression of the religious, of the religion, of the religious? You understand? What is an artist, sir? Is something apart from our daily living, the beauty of living, the quality of a mind that's really religious. You follow? Is he part of that, or is he a freak outside that? Because he has certain talents. And the expression of that talent becomes extraordinarily important to him and to the people.
In our culture, it often seems that the expression of that talent brings him into conflict with certain conventions.
And also expression that conflict in himself.
Of course. Yes, we have a long tradition in Western civilization of the artist as an outsider, don't we?
Yes, something outside. But he's much more sensitive.
Yes.
Much more alert to the beauty, to nature. But apart from that, he's just an ordinary man.
Yes, of course. Yes.
To me, that's a contradiction. First, be a total human being, and then whatever you create, whatever you do will be beautiful.
Of course.
Whether you paint or whatever you do. Let's divide the artist into something extraordinary, or the businessman something ugly, the scholar just living in a world of the intellect, or the scientist in the world of physics, and so on, so on, so on. But first, there must be human being. You understand? Human being in the sense, the total understanding of life. Death, love, beauty, relationship, responsibility. Not to kill, all that's implied in it. Not that you don't love people. On the contrary, religion is the essence of it. But they're all secondary issues. And people get caught in the secondary issues. I mean, look what's happening. A man who really can heal, he becomes... people worship him. Little healing.
Reminds me of a story you told me once. I think it was a year ago, when it was about the old man sitting on the banks of the river, and the young man came to him after the older man had sent him away to undertake whatever he needed to learn and all this, and he came back with a marvelous announcement that he could now walk on water. And you said that the older man looked at him and said, what's all that about? So you can walk on water. And you've taken all these years to learn how to walk on water. Didn't you see the boat over there on the back?
That's right. That's right. Of course.
Of course. There's...
You see, sir, that's very important. When there is this... Religion is, as we said, is the gathering of all energy, which is attention. In that attention, many things happen. Some of them have this gift of healing, miracles. I've had it, and I know of which I'm speaking about. And religious man never touches it, you follow? He may say occasionally do this or that, but it isn't. It is a thing to be put away. Like a gift, like a talent, it's to be put away because it's a danger.
Exactly.
But the more you are talented, the more me. I am important. I have this talent. Worship me. With that talent I get money, position, power. So this too is a most dangerous thing. So a mind that's religious is aware of all this. And lives a life
in this space. in this marvelous space. Something occurred to me about our discussion earlier concerning energy, and your remark that from the flowering of a plant, and it struck me that the order that is intrinsic to the movement of the plant as it flowers is a revelatory image of order that you have been discussing. And we were talking also about the relation of meditation to understanding on the one hand and knowledge on the other, a distinction that's very, very rarely made.
Yes.
Though in ordinary language we make the distinction, perhaps unwittingly. It's there.
It's there.
We have the two words.
Right.
But then to go into what the distinction is was something you were beginning to do, and perhaps we could...
We can go on.
Yes.
So we were talking, if I remember rightly, about control.
Yes.
And we said the controller is the controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into that sufficiently. And when there is control, there is direction. Direction implies will. Control implies will, and in the desire to control, there is established a goal and a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Which means to carry out the decision made by will, and the carrying out is the duration of time.
Yes.
And therefore direction means time, control, will, and an end. All that's implied in the word control. Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what place has will in meditation and therefore in life?
Yes, yes, yes.
Or it has no place at all. That means there is no place for decision at all. Only seeing, doing. And that doesn't demand will, nor direction.
Mm-hmm.
When you follow, you
Yes,
see,
I do. Yes, I do.
the beauty of this, how it works out. When the mind sees the futility of control, otherwise meditation has no meaning.
Yes, I do. This raises an interesting question I'd like to ask you. Perhaps you'd be good enough to help me clarify this. Now, I've never personally undertaken meditation with respect to its ritual character in some traditions, or its
monastic
and radically methodical approach. I've read rather deeply in the literatures that have emanated from those practices, and I'm thinking, for instance, of what I've understood from my study of what is called the hesychast tradition,
yes.
where what is called the Jesus prayer is uttered by the monks, particularly on Mount Athos.
Yes.
Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon me, a sinner. This is repeated over and over with, as I understand it, the hope that someday it will become so automatic that, perhaps as a modern-day depth psychologist would put it, the unconscious comes into possession of it, so that what I'm doing, whatever that may be, is itself focused entirely on that prayer. The claim being that when this is achieved, when I no longer have to utter the prayer in that sense, the prayer is uttering itself
Sure.
in me.
The same thing, sir, is expressed in India in a different way, which is mantra. You know that?
Yes.
Repetition of a sentence or a word, and the repeating loudly first, then silently, then it has entered into your being, and the very sound of it is going on.
Yes.
And from that sound you act, you live. But it's all self-imposed in order to arrive at a certain point. I say, for instance, when you said the prayer which you just now repeated is sin. I don't accept sin. I don't know what sin is.
I can just imagine the horror on the faces of those whose ears catch those words.
I know, which means the reason that one has gone through all this, one sees it. And the very perception is action which is wisdom. Because wisdom is the ending of suffering. It isn't carelessness, it's the ending of it. And the ending of it means the observation, the seeing of suffering, not to go beyond it, refuse it, rationalize it or run away from it, just to see it, live it, let it flower. And as you're choicelessly aware of this flowering, it comes naturally to wither away. I don't have to do something about it.
Marvelous, marvelous how energy can be free to pattern itself or not pattern itself. The pattern is free to be energized, or the whole thing is simply all round.
Yes, it covers the whole of man's endeavor, his thoughts, his anxiety, everything it covers.
So in our conversations all through, we have reached a point of consummation here,
Yes.
where
The whole
it is round. I wonder if Shakespeare had some intimation of this when he said ripeness is all. He must have been thinking of that not simply as setting a term to the career of a fruit.
Time comes to an end. Time stops. In silence, time stops.
In silence, time stops. Immensely beautiful. I must express to you my gratitude from the bottom of my heart. I hope you will let me, because throughout the whole career of our discussions, I have been undergoing a transformation.
Right. Because you are willing enough to listen, good enough to listen. Most people are not, they won't listen. Let it flower, and as it flowers, as you are watching it dies, it withers away.
Yes.
After all, it's like a flower. You allow it to bloom, and it withers.
It comes to be and passes away in its own
Therefore,
time.
if you are choicelessly aware of this movement of desire, control, will, focusing that will in action, and so on, so on, so on. Let it, watch it. And as you watch it, you see how it loses its vitality. So there is no control. So from that arises the next question, which is, direction means space.
Right? Yes, of course.
It's very interesting.
It is.
What
It is.
comes. What is space? Space which thought has created is one thing. Space that exists in heaven, in our, what is it? In the universe, space. There must be space for a mountain to exist. There must be space for a tree to grow. There must be space for a flower to bloom. So, what is space, and have we space? Or are we all so limited physically to living in a little apartment, little houses, no space at all outwardly, and therefore, having no space, we become more and more violent?
Yes.
I don't know if you have watched of an evening when all the swallows are lined up on a bough.
Oh, yes.
And how exact spaces they have in between. You follow, sir? Have you? It's
Yes,
marvelous.
It's marvelous, yes.
To see this space. And space is necessary. And we have no space physically. More and more population and all the rest of it. And therefore more and more violence. More and more living together in a small flat. 1,000 people, crowded. Breathing the same air, thinking the same thing, seeing the same television, reading the same book, going to the same church, believing the same thing. You follow? The same sorrow, the same anxiety, the same fears. My country, all that. So, mind and so the brain has very little space. No control, no reaching out or not reaching, searching, asking, questioning, demanding, waiting, praying, none of that. Therefore there is tremendous, all that energy which has been wasted is now gathered in that silence. That silence has become sacred. Because obviously,
of course it has.
It has not the sacred thing which thought has invented.
No, not the sacred over against the profane.
And all that kind of stuff.
No.
So, it is only such a sacred mind can see this, the most supreme sacred. The essence of all that is sacred, which is beauty. You follow?
I do.
So there it is. God isn't something that man has invented or created it out of his image and longing and failure. But when the mind itself becomes sacred, then it opens the door to something that is immeasurably sacred. That is religion. And that affects the daily living. The way I talk, the way I treat people, the conduct, behavior, all that. That is the religious life. If that doesn't exist, then every other mischief will exist. However clever, however intelligent, however all that.
And meditation does not occur in the context of all this disorder.
No.
Absolutely not. But in its ongoingness, the way you have mentioned it, one is precisely in that where what your word religious is pointing to.
That's the most profound religious way of living. See, sir, what takes place, another thing. See, as this thing is happening, because your energy is being gathered. Energy is being gathered, not your. Energy is being gathered. You have other kinds of powers, extrasensory power. You can do miracles. It has happened all this to me. Exercise.
Dialogues between Krishnamurti and Dr. Alan W. Anderson, who is professor of religious studies at San Diego State University, where he teaches Indian and Chinese scriptures and the oracular tradition. Dr. Anderson, a published poet, received his degree from Columbia University and the Union Theological Seminary. He has been honored with a Distinguished Teaching Award from the California State Universities.
Mr. Krishnamurti, in our last conversation, we came almost up to the point where we were about to begin another on the subject of meditation. And I was hoping that today we could share that together.
Right, sir. So I do not know if you're aware of the many schools of meditation in India, in Japan, in China, the Zen, and the various Christian contemplative orders, those who pray endlessly, keep going day after day, and those who wait to receive the grace of God, or whatever they call it. I think, if I may suggest, we should begin not with what is the right kind of meditation, but what is meditation.
Yes, yes.
Then we can proceed and investigate together, and therefore share together, this question of meditation, which is, with the word meaning ponder, hold together, embrace, consider very, very deeply. All that word is, meaning of all that is involved in that one word, meditation. If we could start with saying that we really do not know what meditation is.
Very well. Mm-hmm.
If we accept to control it is to suppress it. To yield to it is another form of fragmenting life into getting and losing. I don't know.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, to allow for the flowering of desire without control. You understand?
Yes, I do.
So, the very flowering is the ending of that desire. But if you chop it off, it'll come back again. I don't know.
Yes, yes. It's the difference between a terminus and a consummation.
So I let the desire come, flower, and watch it. Watch it, not yield or resist. Just let it flower. And be fully aware of what is happening. Then there is no control.
And no disorder.
No, of course. Moment you control, there is a disorder. Because you're suppressing or all the rest of it. So that is disorder. But when you allow this thing to flower and watch it in the sense be totally aware of it, petals, the subtle forms of desire, to possess, not to possess is a pleasure, not to possess is a pleasure. You follow the whole of that movement of desire.
Exactly.
And that you have to have a very sensitive watchfulness, very sensitive, choiceless watching.
This image that you have referred to metaphorically with the plant itself,
Yeah.
Could we pursue that in our next conversation through a continuation of concern to look further into
we
meditation?
haven't finished meditation
We haven't
yet.
no.
There's
Good.
lots more involved.
Good, good. Mr. Krishnamurti, we were discussing in our conversation last time meditation, and just as we concluded, you brought up the very beautiful analogy from the flowering of a plant, and it struck me that the order that is intrinsic to the movement of the plant as it flowers is a revelatory image of order that you have been discussing. And the act of meditation is the nexus
That's right, sir.
between them, so that there is no interruption of flow in the activity
That's
of
right.
understanding and
That
knowing.
That is part of meditation.
Of course.
You follow?
Yes.
Now see what's taking place. Then what is sleep? I've understood now what it means to be awake. That means I'm watching. I'm aware. I'm aware without any choice, choiceless awareness, watching, looking, observing, hearing. What is going on, what's going outside, what people tell me, whether they flatter me, whether they insult me, I'm watching. So I'm very aware. Now, what is sleep? I know what is sleep. Resting, shutting your eyes, going to bed at 9 or 10 or later. What is sleep? And in sleep, dreams. What are dreams? I don't know what the others say. I'm not interested in what the others say. You follow? I want to, because my inquiry is to find out whether meditation covers the whole field of life, not just one segment.
My inquiry is from the point where I say, I don't know.
I don't know. That's right. So I proceed. I dream. There are dreams.
Yes.
What are dreams? Why should I dream? So I have to find out why I dream. What are dreams? Dreams are the continuation of my daily sleep. Which is, I haven't understood. See what is taking place, sir. I haven't understood my daily life. I haven't watched my daily life. My daily life is in disorder. So I go to sleep and the disorder continues. And the brain says, I must have order. Otherwise I can't function. So if the mind doesn't put order during the day, brain tries to bring order during the night. I don't feel
Through the dream.
through the dreams, through intimations. When I wake, I say, yes, I have a certain feeling this must be done. So, see what takes place. When the mind is awake during the day, it has order. Zen, the various gurus and systems, there is a path to that enlightenment or to that truth or to that immeasurable something or other. And it is there, all that you have to do is keep on walking towards it. That means that thing is established, fixed, static, is not moving, is not living.
Flashed into my mind the biblical text in which God is described as the lamp unto my feet and the light unto my path. It doesn't say he's the path, but rather he's the lamp.
To the
Right. As a lamp to the feet and a light to the path. But it doesn't say that God is the path. That's very interesting.
Very.
But maybe nobody really looks at those words closely.
You see, sir, how you are looking at it already. Mm-hmm. That statement, you see the truth of that statement, mm-hmm. the feeling of it.
Yes, yes.
So, that's one thing. Does meditation cover the whole field of existence? Or is it something totally apart from life? Life being business, politics, sex, pleasure, ambition, greed, envy, anxiety, death, fear, all that is my life. Life, living. Mm-hmm. Is meditation apart from that, or does it embrace all that? If it doesn't embrace all that, meditation has no meaning.
Something just came to me that I'm sure would be regarded as incredibly heretical. But you know, the words of Jesus himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life, when understood in the context of what has been revealed through these discussions we've had, takes on, in relation to something else he said, an incredibly different meaning from what we've been taught. For instance, when he asks Peter who he is, that is, who am I? Jesus. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He immediately turns to him and says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Nothing to do with flesh and blood, but my Father which is in heaven.
Greed, envy, the daily competitive, imitative, conforming spirit, the daily appetites, sensual, sexual, other forms of intellectual and so on. Is meditation divorced from all that? Or is meditation flows through all that? Mm-hmm. Covers all that, includes all that. Otherwise, meditation has no meaning.
Yes, I do. This raises an interesting question I'd like to ask you. Perhaps you'd be good enough to help me clarify this. Now, I've never personally undertaken meditation with respect to its ritual character in some traditions, or its
monastic
and radically methodical approach. I've read rather deeply in the literatures that have emanated from those practices, and I'm thinking, for instance, of what I've understood from my study of what is called the Hesychast tradition,
yes.
Where what is called the Jesus prayer is uttered by the monks, particularly on Mount Athos.
Yes.
Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy upon me, a sinner. This is repeated over and over with, as I understand it, the hope that someday it will become so automatic that perhaps, as a modern-day depth psychologist would put it, the unconscious comes into possession of it, so that what I'm doing, whatever that may be, is itself focused entirely on that prayer. The claim being that when this is achieved, when I no longer have to utter the prayer in that sense, the prayer is uttering itself in me.
The same thing, sir, is expressed in India in a different way, which is mantra. You know that?
Yes.
Repetition of a sentence or a word, and the repeating loudly first, then silently, then it has entered into your being, and the very sound of it is going on.
Oh, yes.
Now, what place has an artist in the not only social structure, in his expression of the religious, of the religion, of the religious? You understand? What is an artist, sir? Is he something apart from our daily living, the beauty of living, the quality of a mind that's really religious? You follow? Is he part of that, or is he a freak outside that? Because he has certain talents. And the expression of that talent becomes extraordinarily important to him and to the people.
In our culture, it often seems that the expression of that talent brings him into conflict with certain conventions.
And also expression that conflict in himself.
Of course. Yes, we have a long tradition in Western civilization of the artist as an outsider, don't we?
Yes, something outside. But he's much more sensitive.
Yes.
Much more alert to the beauty, to nature. But apart from that, he's just an ordinary man.
Yes, of course. Yes.
To me, that's a contradiction. First, be a total human being, and then whatever you create, whatever you do will be beautiful.
Of course.
Whether you paint or whatever you do. Let's divide the artist into something extraordinary, or the businessman something ugly, the scholar just living in a world of the intellect, or the scientist in the world of physics, and so on, so on, so on. But first, there must be human being. You understand? Human being in the sense, the total understanding of life. Death, love, beauty, relationship, responsibility. Not to kill, all that's implied in living. Therefore, he establishes a relation.
I meant that simply to take a step back from the enthrallment and enchantment with answers is in itself a necessary step. And that in itself has its own terror.
Of course, of course. But I'm asking, is silence, is this sense of immeasurable, does that come about by my questioning?
No.
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 Perception sees the false and discards the false. There is no question. It sees and finished. But if I keep on questioning, I keep on doubting. Doubt has its place, but it must be kept on a leash.
Now, let me ask you a question here, if I may. The act of perceiving is, as you've said, the doing.
Doing,
There's
absolutely.
absolutely no interval between one
I see danger to the act.
and I act. Exactly. Now, in this perceiving, the act, is totally free,
Yes, sir.
and then every energy pattern is free to
Yes.
become change.
Yes, quite.
Yes, exactly. No more hoarding to itself
No regret.
all that it's worked for all its life.
Quite. Oh, no.
Yeah, and amazingly, though, it seems to me there's, if I've understood you correctly, there's a corollary to this. Not only is the pattern free to be changed, but the energy is free to pattern itself.
Or not a pattern.
Or not to pattern. Yes,
There it is. In the knowledge has to pattern.
of course.
But here it can't pattern. Pattern of for what? If it patterns, becomes thought again.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore thought is divisive, thought is superficial. I don't know if I told you the other day, somebody was telling me, Professor Boehmrel, in fact, he was saying that in Eskimo language, thought means the outside. So what is creation? One can only answer that if one has really gone through all this. You understand, sir? Otherwise, creation becomes rather a cheap thing.
Yes, it becomes, in terms of the word expressed, simply something pressed out.
Pressed out, of course.
That's all.
At all.
Yes.
Just like the writer, literary people, who are, some of them are everlastingly in battle in themselves with tension and all that, and out of that they write a book, become famous.
Yes, the psychological theory that works about are based on neurosis.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Which means I'm driven.
Yeah. So what is creation? Is it something, a flowering in which the flower does not know that it is flowering? I don't.
Exactly, exactly.
Have I made it clear?
Yes, you've made it very, very clear. All through our conversations, the one word that has, for me, been like the clean blade of a two-edged sword, has been this word act.
Yes, sir.
But not act over against inaction.
No.
Not action as over against the philosophical term of its opposite, passion, which is a different use from the one that you were using in our conversations. But sheerly act.
Act.
Sheerly act.
So see what takes place. Creation in my living. You follow, sir? Not expressing, creating a beautiful chair, this, that may come, that will come. But in living. And from that arises another question, which is really much more important. Thought is measure. And as long as we cultivate thought, and all our actions based on thought as it is now, the search for the immeasurable has no meaning.
Yes,
I won't,
yes.
that is hypocrisy, and I'm not interested in all that. I'm really interested in seeing what is meditation. So one starts with this freedom, and freedom means the burden, freeing the mind, emptying itself of the burdens of others. Their methods, their systems, their acceptance of authority, their beliefs, their hope, because it's part of me, all that. Therefore I discard all that. And now I start by saying I don't know. what meditation is. I start, that means the mind is free, has this sense of great humility. Not knowing, I'm not asking. Then somebody will fill it.
Exactly.
Some book, some scholar, some professor, some psychologist comes around and says, you don't know? Here, I know. I'll give it to you. I say, please don't. I know nothing. You know nothing either. Because you are repeating what others have said. So I discard all that. Now I begin to inquire. I'm in a position to inquire. Not to achieve a result, not to arrive at what they call enlightenment, nothing. I don't know if there is enlightenment or not. I start with this feeling of great humility, not knowing, therefore, the mind is capable of real inquiry. So inquire. First of all, I look at my life. Because I said at the beginning, meditation implies the covering the whole field of life. My life, our life, is first, I take, the daily conscious living. I've examined, I've looked at it. There is contradiction and so on, so we've been talking about that. And also, there is the question of sleep. I go to sleep. 8, 9, 10 hours. What is sleep? I start not knowing, not what others have said. You follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
I'm inquiring in relation to meditation, which is it's over. So space in the mind means the emptying of consciousness of all its content, and therefore the consciousness which thought as the me has created ends, and therefore there is space. And that space isn't yours or mine, it's space.
Yes, I was thinking of the creation story in Genesis. The appearance of space occurs when the waters are separated from the waters,
Yes.
and we have the vault now, over which the birds fly. And this space is called heaven. Isn't it? And in the context
It is heaven.
It is heaven.
That's right.
Yes, of course. But then we read that, you see, and we don't.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
I don't read any of those things. I don't. Goodness, so space, direction, time, will, choice, control. You understand, sir? Now, all that has importance in my living, in the daily living of my life, of every human being. If he doesn't know the meaning of meditation, he merely lives in that field of knowledge, and therefore that becomes a prison. And therefore that being a prison, he says, I must escape through entertainment, through gods, through this and through that, through amusement. That's what is actually taking place.
The word vacation.
Vacation, that's right.
Says it all.
Yes, that's
doesn't
right.
it?
Yeah, absolutely.
To vacate is to exit into space.
Space.
Yeah. But then we go from one hole to another.
Another hole.
Yeah.
Now, if that is clearly established, perceived in myself, I see the thing operating in my daily life, then what takes place? Space means silence. If there is silence, if there is no silence, it's direction. It's the operation of will. I must do, I must not do, I must practice this, I must get this. If all. This should be, should not be, what has been, what should not be, I regret.